we're almost getting the table set. So ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by inviting our moderator, Mr. Sathish Gopalaiah, President Consulting, Deloitte South Asia. Please be kind enough. Let's welcome him on stage. The panel stage is all yours. Please take a break. Then Nasi, please allow me this pleasure of inviting our panelists, and as I invite them, please feel free to put your hands together with as much energy as possible. Our first panelist, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Doshi, MD Corporate Units, Digital BT Group. Please welcome Mr. Mohit Sood, Regional Managing Principal, ZS. Please welcome Ms. Mamatha Madireddy, Managing Director, Head, HSBC India Global Service Center. Please welcome Ms. Anahita Tiwari, Managing Director, Head, India Global Centers, Morgan Stanley. And last but definitely not the least, Mr. Saswata, Senior Director and Global Head of Data Analytics and Data Sciences, Philips GBS. With this, I'd like to hand over the stage to the expertise of our panelists.
To each one of you, and I hope I'm audible. So, we had a very interesting session by Sri Anil Sagar, and as the session was going on, I had an opportunity to share with some of the panelists as well that some of the red carpet that the governments are rolling out for the GCCs in India and for many of the organizations, and it's an eye opener over the years, and especially UP government, the attempts that UP has been making to make sure that it's very conducive for business, and rolling out all the initiatives for the GCCs to come into UP is very, very promising, and something that each one of you can experience as well. And we had many stories of some fantastic experiences of organizations trying to set up in UP. But coming to the topic of today, specifically talking about GCC, I want to specifically point out that GCCs contribute to about 1% of India's GDP. But more than that, what is important is for every 1 rupee spent, there is a 3 rupee impact on the Indian economy, and something that each one of us should be very proud. And for every 1 rupee, there is a 5x impact on employment, and that is the actual employment that is generated because of the GCCs that are being set up in India. More interestingly, today's topic, something that I'd like to point out on 2 parameters and 2 specific areas. One is how GCCs are more moving away from just being a capability center. Previously we used to have shared service organizations moving towards capability centers, but now how capability centers are moving more towards extended enterprise. And some of the panelists today, and maybe all of them, no longer look at themselves as some sort of a capability center, but an extended enterprise of their organizations and wherever they are. So that is how they would possibly introduce themselves. What we are also seeing is that they are not just head of capability centers here, but they have key global roles sitting out of India. And that is something that is increasingly happening, and that is some fantastic shift that is happening over the years. Based on our own studies, we have about 5,000 global roles today based out of India. And in the next few years, this is going to be about 20,000 global roles. But I think, given all of these contexts, I would like to go back to this very distinguished panel here, achievers, just not in their organizations, but in the industry as well. And as they are talking about and responding to some of the questions, I would also request them to give a little bit of background about themselves, their own journey, so that it helps give a little bit of context as well as we move forward. Jay, possibly I will start with you. Though I was asked to pick any chair, I wanted to pick this one with a corner, but trying to see who could be the center. So not that you're right there in the center, but I think Jay, starting with you, given your role specifically, you're just not looking at certain areas, but as a CIO of the organization based out of GCC, how do you see the evolution of GCC and your own journey within this GCC and the transformation that you have seen happen?
Thank you, Sathish. And they say consultants typically get the corner, so that they can also corner the people. But first, thank you, ET, thank you, Deloitte, and thank you everyone for inviting me here today and to share some of the learnings that we have had. Let me just talk a little bit about BT so you have the context and my role at BT as well. BT, British Telecom, as you would know, is a multinational with telecom services in 180 countries. We are close to 135,000 people across the world. In India, we have 14,000 people that directly work for us, predominantly in Group NCR, I would say, Kolkata and Bangalore. We also have India as a market in addition to India, the work that we do. And Sathish, you're absolutely right. We have close to other 15,000 people who work for us in India through our partner organization. At BT, I work for BT Digital. Digital is the powerhouse of BT and transforming the digital experience that our customers and our colleagues get. And I'm the Chief Digital and Information Officer for BT Group. I'm responsible for everything that our colleagues or employees use from a technology perspective, experience perspective. I actually joined BT in 2008. Before that, I was running my own startup. I was a bit early in the startup world. I ran that for 4 years, and then I joined BT. At BT, we really don't call ourselves as a GCC, and rightly said by Sathish, it's an extension of a global organization with really an organization where people in India have people across the world working for them. And so we are really looking at the world as a skill and a talent market and where we operate out of it. In terms of our journey in BT, we actually started off with focus on technology in 2007-8. I joined BT Group when I was we were 20 people. And today we are 14,000 people. And there's been an incredible amount of learning that we had. But what's very, I would say, what really struck me and coming from a startup into BT at that point of time was really the accountability and ownership way back in 2008. And I'll give one nugget and then pass it back to you, was that when I joined in the first 6 months, we were a team of 4 people that were owning the capability of BT's billing worldwide, and that was a 20 billion pound of revenue billing was owned by 4 people sitting in Bangalore, along with the teams in the UK. But the ownership, accountability of strategy to retirement of that whole capability sat with you. And I think that's something very distinct, and that has been a part of our DNA as we have scaled from 20 people to 14,000 people.
Thanks, Jay, and very fantastic growth story that you're talking about as well. Mamatha, coming over to you, your story at HSBC and also how you have seen HSBC transforming itself over the years.
Thank you, Sathish. Morning all. First of all, thank you for having me here. So HSBC's story as a GCC in India, I would say is a reflection of how the industry has evolved and grown. Because we started way back in March 2000, March 23rd to be precise, 24 years back. The first GCC in India was set up with 10 people in a hotel room in Hyderabad. Right? That's where we started our journey. And over the years, and we're kind of looking at that, we are in all the cities that's mentioned there. But from operations GCC perspective, in addition to Hyderabad, we've got Bangalore, of course, Kolkata, Gurgaon, and Chennai. We also have our tech centers in Pune, Hyderabad, and Bangalore. So both our tech GCC and operations GCCs put together, we have about 40,000 people in India today. Purely from an operations GCC perspective, we are almost 45 to 50% of the overall GCC footprint. So as GCCs in HSBC, we are in 8 different countries today, and India, of course, continues to be core and central to that GCC capability. So when we started, like the industry was, and Shri Anil mentioned that as well, it was a cost arbitrage, right? It's cheaper to do work in India. Let's just flip some work over to India. So we started to do this very fragmented processes, very prescriptive, very procedure driven, don't ask questions, just do what your procedures are telling you. Right? So don't deviate from the procedures to where we are today. Whereas GCCs, we are asked how to drive customer propositions, how to drive value to the business. From where we started to doing that very repetitive processing work, as we would call it, we've evolved, and today we house the largest transformation capability for HSBC in India. We house the largest automation capability for HSBC in India. Name it finance operations, HR shared services, utilities, risk and compliance. We have a huge data analytics office. The ESG reporting for the group, for HSBC's group, actually happens out of the office in Bangalore. Right? We have a huge global research team as well. So when we start to look at the composition of services that we provide to the markets that we serve, we've evolved from being offshore, right, in the old parlance, if I can use, to really being that strategic trusted partner to our stakeholders, where they look to us for advice, for steer and for guidance. And I think COVID was a big, inflection point almost in terms of just enhancing the credibility and trust in terms of how India as a country responded, and India GCCs in particular kind of responded. So coming back to my role, I head the GCCs for India, close to about 27,000 people. I started as an assistant manager in the organization 22 years back. I had a team of 25 when I started. So I proudly say that I'm a homegrown true talent of HSBC. One of the changes we've also seen is when we set up the GCCs, there was a large population of expats who were here to help set up the GCCs. But now it's a very different story. It's a significantly large proportion of homegrown talent. There are a couple of other areas, I think, as GCCs, especially India, we kind of leading the ways on diversity and inclusion. Again, when we started off, it was never focused on diversity. We obviously then, I think, moved towards gender diversity, but we're definitely looking beyond gender to ability, which is locomotive, as well as neurodiversity and LGBTQ as well. The other area, again, as India GCCs, where we are leading is on sustainability. And how are we kind of even shaping this for the whole of the GG, the global capability centers, but also some of the markets that we are supporting. So leading on a lot of areas, but I think what I would probably say is almost like an order taker 24 years back to becoming the true strategic trusted partner for our stakeholders.
Thanks, Mamatha. And what I can clearly see that whether it is from Jay or from your side, there have been mini startups sort of within the organization that have grown. So, it's just not about you being proud, Mamatha, but I think we are very proud as well as what you have achieved starting from there, and Jay and everybody else on this panel. So, very proud, and I'm sure everyone in the audience will be very proud as well. So, Mohit, coming to you, and when I was talking to Mohit about an hour back, when I asked Mohit, how many centers do you have in India and how many people, So Mohit was basically saying you have 37 offices globally, and India is one of them, and so it's a very clear distinction between being an extended enterprise. And given where ZS is in the journey and the unique area of focus, so please throw some light in terms of how you look at yourself as an extended enterprise in the world that you live.
Thank you, Sathish. And again, I'm so glad and humbled to be part of this panel here. But I think everybody talked about how proudly we are impacting India. I want to also sort of take us all back to the name says Global Capability Centers. So I'm really glad to be part of the group that is sitting in India, making global impact. So that's something I think we all should be very proud. Not only are we making an impact in India, but we're actually making an impact globally. So speaking as Sathish said, a little bit about ZS first, and then I'll speak a little bit about my own role. So ZS is the largest professional services firm focused on healthcare, transforming healthcare for the world. And we provide end-to-end services for our clients, ranging from strategy and advisory, doing technology capability building for them, running some of their critical business operations, and also then creating a platform that they can use for self-serve. So we go and provide end-to-end services for our clients in the life sciences industry. Our journey in India started, again, very similar to what Jay and Mamatha shared. It was in 2005, where it was started more as an experiment. Okay, and I remember joining ZS in 2007. We were 40 odd people at that time. And I was positioned it as it's an experiment, and we will see how this goes. And the reason also it was an experiment is because in the healthcare industry, as you can imagine, is highly regulated. Right? Even the data transfer was not something that was encouraged. And so now here we were starting to sort of dream that we will create a capability and solve healthcare data and insights and analytics problems sitting in India. So it was indeed an experiment. But from then to now, we are 2/3 of ZS. So ZS globally is about 14,000 people, and we in India are about 9,000 people spread across 5 different cities, including one in Bangalore. And in this journey, I personally have had an opportunity to play many different roles. My current role today is that I head up our India region, and I also now, having learned what it takes to set up a capability center effectively, I'm also advising some of our clients who are setting up their India centers, so I work with them very closely. With respect to the other questions, Sathish, that you were asking about, how you sort of go from being a cost-focused center to then, value-based center. One of the things I wanted to share there was that for ZS, very interestingly, as I talked about experiment, one of the experiment also was to really set it up very differently. We never thought of ourselves as a cost center or something that we want to do at a lower price. Because again, coming from healthcare industry, margin was never an issue. Right? And so the cost was never an issue. The idea was how can we house expertise and how can we bring innovation capabilities to transform the way healthcare is being done. And that was really the genesis of the setup. And so we've sort of continued on that journey. So today, all of our product development actually happens in India. All of our expertise centers are actually housed in India. And last but not the least, all the incubation centers have a very strong presence in India. In fact, our CEO the other day mentioned that 90% of innovations that we are able to bring to the market actually took shape in India. So that was again extremely powerful. So again, looking forward to learn and contribute to the learning center.
Well, 90% is very, very powerful. So if you look at the numbers here, Jay spoke about 4 people, Mamatha spoke about closer to 20, and you spoke about 40. And all of this has grown over the years, and we have 1.6 million people today, working in this setup. But, amazing story. So, Anahita, if it's okay, I'll come next to you. Tell us about your personal story and also the story of Morgan Stanley, and how have you seen the growth and also the transformation from the various stages.
Good morning to everybody. Thank you for inviting us. I think it's our pleasure to be here on the panel today. I was very intrigued to hear all the stories. There's so much in common for all of us. I can start with a brief introduction about Morgan Stanley. I think most of you would have heard us. We are one of the largest financial services firm headquartered in the United States, but we have a presence across the globe. Our front office business presence in India has been now for about 30 years. But our global centers, the GCC presence has been now for about 20 years. So we started our journey in Mumbai, and our second center was set up in Bangalore. But very similar to how Mamatha said, right? It was an evolution for us as well. In Morgan Stanley, we are actually a global network of GCCs. So far shore as well as near shore. And the way some of these GCCs have evolved, I think outside of India, most of the GCCs are specializing in supporting certain businesses or specializing in certain capabilities. So for example, we have a center in Budapest that specializes in data and analytics. But no surprises, the centers in India across both Mumbai and Bangalore are true microcosms of the firm. We support across all of the three main businesses that Morgan Stanley has, which is our institutional services business, our institutional securities business, asset management and wealth management. So I think for us, we are really a reflection of how the global firm is set up across the businesses, across the infrastructure teams as well. Our journey has also been very interesting. We started with, of course, technology and I wouldn't say experiment, but I think the success that we saw with setting up technology as a footprint here gave us the confidence to continue building. Now we support Morgan Stanley across everything that the firm does. We've had, I think, very good success in building centers of excellence. So in addition to all the standard processes that any global firm would do, we do have centers of excellence, particularly for generative AI. We also focus a lot on the compliance work, KYC, anti-money laundering as well, cyber security in particular, and then of course through the research capabilities that we've set up, etc. I think we continue to move forward. It's been a journey for us, so we are in many ways on the rising curve of the maturity arc for all GCCs, and we have a long way to go, but I think we are confident we are on the right path with the talent that we have available, the ability to pick at scale and to build at scale continues to be a huge competitive advantage. I said we have multiple GCCs in Morgan Stanley, but the fact that in India, whatever you set up can be scaled is a true competitive advantage. So I think cost is something that is a given, but beyond that, it's the talent and the ability to scale that truly sets us.
Thanks, Anahita. And the interesting point on scale and India being known for scale and how you can possibly set that up. One other interesting fact is based on the setup being done by the large organizations, what we are increasingly seeing today is small and mid-sized organizations are setting up GCCs in India, and almost 47% of them, based on our study, are moving more than one function. So, and many of them have all engineering, R&D, IT and BPM all moving together, and that is happening more and more, and therefore this prediction about having 2,000 GCCs in the next couple of years or so is coming. Saswata, coming to you, your story and Philips' story as well. Again, given healthcare technology, another area of focus which is gaining a lot of importance. Over to you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here. Quite humbling to be in presence of leaders who are, and I'm also trying to think how do I differentiate from the story, because it's very similar, what we heard. So I'll start with Philips. It's a health technology company. When I joined, I thought it was lighting or TV or radio. None of that is sold by Philips for more than 20 years. So it's mostly in the CT, MR, hospital space. Health technology is a booming industry, and we play our role in that industry. Overall, we have 70,000 employees globally, and we started our GPS, we call it GPS, same as GCC, there are many names, in 2014, much later than the teams or the leaders kind of shared with us here. But R&D was present in India for many years, 25, 30 years. R&D has been very big in Philips. We consider, at least I consider that outside of GBS or GCC. Happened by chance. I was based out of Bangalore. I'm an analytics professional, so I've been doing analytics, leading analytics, or setting up teams many times before. I had a chance meeting with GBS head in Bangalore, who was visiting, only person reporting to CEO. She said, hey, you know analytics. I need to set up GBS. Can you help me with knowing or running data analytics on where is talent available? What are the processes that are standard and repetitive? Where do we find the best wage arbitrage? Yet we have, a lot of proximity with the businesses. So we built analytical models, and then we decided where to set up our shops. Again, for me, I think India is, of course, a country, and my own country. I'm very proud. But we've set up GCC for 8 centers worldwide. Right now, we are about 5,500. Our number is much smaller. We have a huge partner pool, which I think I will skip. India, we have about 1,300 people. I lead data and analytics for globally all the centers for Philips. I think it has been a great journey. For India, I think one of the things that I want to call out is the culture. And the way we welcome everybody has also played a very big role in our success. Not only, of course, we all start with cost, but it's it's there. I don't think cost is less important. But the way we have assimilated with everybody and welcomed everybody, that has made all the difference, in my perspective.
Thank you, Saswata. So, Mamatha, coming to you, HSBC is one of the widest centers in the network. So I have a couple of questions here. One, how do you bring about innovation and collaboration across the network? The other one is something that I'm very passionate as well about diversity, and you spoke about diversity in a 27,000 people organization. How are you looking at diversity? And also the women leaders like you will be a great inspiration within the organization. So how do you bring that about, and how do you have more women leaders? And I'm sure the audience will appreciate this aspect as well.
3 questions in that, Sathish, the way I read it. So I'll pick the second one first, which is on the diversity element. I think every organization, for sure, by default, would be looking at gender diversity. Right? Today, across India GCCs, we are 60-40% in terms of our diversity, 60 being men and 40% female. What is, again, a data point that I'm very proud about is when we look at our senior leadership. When I say senior leadership, gender in parlance of senior VPs and above, we are actually 31%. It's probably the best that we have in HSBC Bank, in India GCCs on that senior leadership. I think where we struggle is really kind of on the middle management, which I think is a common problem kind of across the organizations, and for various reasons. Is enough research that has been done on why diversity tends to fall at a certain level, gender diversity. So a lot of interventions, programs like Take Two, which we call as just kind of returning to office, women who've taken a break, programs like coaching circles, Edgeway, very focused on kind of gender diversity. But the one I really want to talk about is ability. Right, where we're looking at locomotive and neurodiversity. Locomotive, again, last year we had a very focused hiring drive to hire people with that ability. We hired about 36 people in the organization. But what we realized is the bigger opportunity actually is on the inclusion element. It's easier to onboard people, but how do we integrate them into the mainstream workforce, if I can call? That is one, sensitization of the line managers, the hiring managers, the team itself. But the second element is their growth journey. Right? What are we hearing? What are the interventions that we need to bring in? Again, very specific, targeted interventions have been done in the organization from that perspective. Neurodiversity is very new to us. We are actually doing a pilot with 6 people in Bangalore, but more as interns, Because as an organization, we need to learn first. What does neurodiversity mean to the organization, and how do we create that ecosystem and environment within the organization for everybody to kind of bring in their best self. So very high focus on ability, LGBT similarly. I think like we spoke with gender in terms of interventions, similar kind of interventions with LGBT as well. But huge focus on diversity and inclusion as more particularly as an organization. I think women leadership, generally we spoke about as industry as well. I think there are a lot of mass comms talking about it. ICI in Hyderabad is talking about it. It's a common problem, like I said, is that middle management, and how do we really kind of fix that issue. And now with hybrid coming in, with tier 2 cities coming in, with the model becoming far more flexible, I think there is greater opportunity, especially for that kind of middle management layers, to now actually thrive. The flexibility in our operating models will almost be a game changer when we start looking at improving our diversity there. Now coming to your first question, Sathish, on collaboration and innovation, and is conscious of time as well. I think one thing we are very clear as an organization is each of our GCCs, we bring in our own advantage, uniqueness, and we don't want that to get diluted. Right? The strength of our GCCs actually lies in our diversity. And then we leverage on kind of each other's strength. But yes, great opportunity on innovation and collaboration. And very quickly, if I can talk, the one, I think, myth that we always continue to dispel in the organization is innovation is not equal to technology. The moment we say innovation, everybody thinks it's technology, it's Gen AI, it's automation, and that everybody gets excited about it. But innovation is much more than technology, and technology is just an enabler. And the way we look at it is, I simply put it as like 4 or 5 C's, right? The first C is, what are we trying to achieve, right? What is clarity on the vision? And we have a massive program that's running in the organization called Bank-Wide Ops Transformation Program. This is all about modernizing our operations. It is all about aligning to the business value streams. That is what we are trying to do. But how do you simplify that to the lowest level in the organization is the key. The second one that I can talk about is communication. And how are you communicating that, which makes sense to me, not to the top brass of the organization. Third C is the capability, right? How are we building in the capability that will sustain for the now, but more importantly, build the talent that we need for the future. So massive piece of work has happened in job architecture, job families, looking at current skills, future skills, and then we bring in our programs, which is, there's a massive program on Future Fit that we are talking about, and how do we create these bite-sized training programs, self-paced learning, so you're creating a talent that is kind of ready for the future. The more important element is the culture, right? And I think one of the panelists did touch base upon culture, is how do you create a culture that promotes collaboration and innovation, right? How do you, is it okay to say that fail fast, please celebrate intelligent mistakes, but at least you've tried, right? That culture of speaking up, questioning things that we do is what we really drive in the organization. One, we have to create platforms for our people to be able to speak up, give ideas, and then we start looking at those ideas saying, what is the replicability of those across the spectrum? So for us, collaboration is almost equal to replicability. Replicability drives collaboration, right? You found a solution somewhere, how can you replicate it elsewhere? And that replication means you have to kind of collaborate with, somebody to do it. And rewards and recognition is very important. How do you recognize the right behaviors? How do you recognize people demonstrating the right kind of values, across the spectrum? But in all, we are unique. Each of the global capability centers, we bring in our own strengths, but we have to create those platforms that enable us, that allow us to collaborate and innovate. But like I said, Sathish, innovation is not just equal to technology. Technology is an enabler. There's so many things we can do in the innovation spectrum, cutting across processes, cutting across culture, cutting across diversity and inclusion and sustainability.
Sure. Mamatha, thanks for that. And since we are the first panel, I've requested for some more time. It's okay if we are all okay on time. So, Jay, coming to you, the transformation from a telco to a technology company, and also given your CIO, right? What the audience will be very interested in addition to the point of transformation, the seat at the table, and the impact that you make within the organization, given that you're CEO based in India? That's something that that shift you can talk about.
Thank you. It's a very deep question, Sathish. You definitely made use of your corner one position there. We have embarked upon a journey of transforming ourselves from a telco to a techco. And this journey started with roughly 3 years back when digital was formed. We used to be a technology which did both what was called as IT and network together, but we had a separate unit called digital. Harmeen Mehta, who is my boss, she's the ex-Airtel, and she joined us, and I kind of worked for her as the CIO for BT Group. We really moved away from just saying being a telco and a provider of service. That's a bit like a utility provider, that you just provide the pipe and then somebody creates a value over that pipe. And there are multiple strands of this. At the core of it is modernizing our technology estate. You won't believe it. 3 years back we had 25,000 systems. And if you put 125,000 people in the company, you can imagine the number of systems we had for every person in the company. Digital is 3,500 people, and we had 25,000 systems that 3,500 people would manage them. The second plank of this, and I think as all the panelists said, cost is a byproduct of everything that we do. Cost is never the driver of what we do. Second plank of our whole transformation is about how do we double the productivity of our people. And very timely, the generative AI has really come in, and we are massively playing with Gen AI. And there are few wins and there are few losers as well, I would say. It's not all working on all cylinders. The third plank of our strategy is actually increase our digital channel share. And the fourth is about building the platforms, and the fifth is new ideas and innovation. In the interest of time, I'll just speak about a couple of them and in the context of my role. When I came in, our finance was run by multiple financial systems, a combination of Oracle, SAP, some homegrown. We also had acquired companies in certain countries, so they were all around that. And how do we build a common information model so that we can actually leverage what you spoke about, the data and AI and the automation. Now, and when I was listening to my fellow panelists, pretty much a similar story of having those COEs here. But by bringing in this role, we actually are now, and we have the same HR processes run out of India, finance processes run out of India. And me being in India, what we are really able to see is how do we bring these operations together locally. In the past, you would have seen things going all the way up to HQ and then coming down. What I have really seen is a word that is really not spoken about, which is offshore. We never use the word offshore. We use colleagues. Certain things like, there is no concept of stakeholders. There is no stakeholders because we are all colleagues. And fundamentally that has driven the collaboration. Now having a role, specifically having a role like mine in India, which is 5,000 and this industry is maturing, what it has really given is a career option, and people can look up to that as that global role and be able to play out of India. No roles, every role has its own value. And of course, on the flip side, I would say is that all the people that I work with work out of UK. All of my bosses' direct reports are in the UK. So the flip side is you have probably longer evenings. The good side is that you can leave your mobile phone on such a session when you are here, and not worry about somebody calling you. My boss is definitely sleeping at this point of time. So look, there are so many advantages of it, but I think the key part I would say is driving the transformation from India and taking it a level above the COE, but driving the collaboration, because for most of us on the seat table here we are a market, we are the services, we kind of, we are the services of, we are the market for the company that we work for, and we are also the technology powerhouse. And how do you bring the three together and innovate from India? And some of the innovations, someday we'll speak about it, have been driven predominantly out of India, and that's where you can really, given the economy, given the way cultural diversity exists in this country, how do you kind of drive innovation at the bottom of the pyramid?
Thanks, Jayan. Anahita, coming to you on that topic of innovation, how do you balance cost versus value in Morgan Stanley, and some examples that you could share with us?
Before I directly answer your question, I think I do want to shed some light on the financial services industry. I think, like many other industries, we've seen our ups and downs over the last few years. I think most of you have lived through the financial crisis of 2007, 2008, and more recently we've seen the failure of some of the big banks across Europe as well as US. So we've never been in a steady flow. I think all financial services firms have seen choppy waters at some point in the last few years. And because of that, we've seen the regulators truly breathing down our back. So from an India perspective, I think we've played a real role in that in terms of stepping up and supporting all of the regulatory asks. So before I speak about innovation, it's about much more than that. It's just being a true partner to the firm and stepping up and taking on a lot of the responsibilities that the firm is managing through as they go through the ups and downs. So regulatory asks, I think somebody else also spoke about healthcare being highly regulated. My friend, financial services are probably right up there in terms of the eyes of the regulators. So I think truly making a mark from India in supporting all of the regulatory asks was huge for us. And then, of course, Morgan Stanley continued to grow as a global firm. We've also taken on a lot of new organizations. So the mergers that have happened globally, Edenvance and E-Trade, and again India played a big role in the integration of some of these firms. So what I'm trying to bring out is from GCCs, there's a lot of value add that we can do. It's about how you are there at the table and how you continue to be part of some of the big business imperatives. Coming to your question on cost and innovation, I think we've continued to be very commercial. We can all say cost is not the top priority, but we are all here because we need to be commercial. So I think how do we continue to challenge ourselves? How do we continue to transform? How do we make sure that from India we are not just adding the value but showing the impact? So maybe if I can speak about from a Morgan perspective, 4 key enablers that have helped us deliver to that. And this may be beneficial for some of you who are probably early GCCs setting up and trying to walk down the path that we've gone through. So I think number one, for sure for us, has been governance. I think whenever you set up a GCC, it's imperative, particularly for financial services, that you have a very solid governance framework. So focusing on your operational risks, focusing on concentration of functions, etc. How do you continue to be thoughtful and transform the way that governance is done from a location that's so far away from the headquarters? Number 2 for us has been just best-in-class talent strategy. So I think we've been very innovative on that as well in terms of the way we recruit talent. I spoke about scale. It's also about exploring campuses. I think in India, one of the biggest successes we've seen is the ability to have a very strong campus recruitment strategy. And it's helped us with, you spoke about UP having some of the best IITs, and we benefited a lot from having a massive program that recruits from some of the best colleges in India, be it the business schools as well as engineering colleges. So that's clearly been a large part of our success, and we've really transformed and innovated around how we bring talent in because that helps us not just manage cost, but also continue to move forward. Number 3, and this has been really important for us, and we learned this over our journey, was about how important it was to continue to solidify our brand. When I opened, I did say that Morgan Stanley is probably known as one of the biggest financial services firms, but still we have to continue to work hard to amplify our brand when we came to India. I think it's being visible through various NASCOM forums as well, being on social media, continuing to talk about what's in it for the talent that we are trying to bring into the organization. I think that really helped us build our brand, get the best niche skill sets into our firm so that we could continue to transform, innovate, and build up these centers of excellence. But on the topic of brand, not just external, what was important for us, and we learned that over the last few years, is to continue to internally as well talk about what we are doing from these GCCs. It's not about positioning ourselves as low-cost centers, it's about changing the narrative to high value, high impact, and extensions of the global enterprise. What is it that India continues to do? Talking about it, setting the story, and creating that narrative. That's something that also has been clear advantage for us as we do the India GCCs. And last, and that's the journey we are on, which is on transformation. So clearly setting up the centers of excellence, hiring the best talent, grassroots innovation, I think Mamatha spoke about it as well. It's not throwing technology at everything, but it's about looking at process optimization, harnessing the intelligent automation solutions out there, continuing to challenge our workforce, to be right up there in terms of idea generation and then deliver impact through execution. So I think it's been all of that for us. And of course, being commercial, like I said, eye on where we are in terms of the global cost, that also continues.
Thank you, Anahita. Saswata, coming to you, specifically looking at what you do from a data perspective, how do you actually get that customer experience and you actually do? Yeah.
Okay. Thank God, this question was a bit different. I think all the companies, including the financial giants and healthcare companies, we are moving rapidly towards data, software, AI usage. I think the question was around customer experience. I'll take 2 examples, and this is being done by most of the health technology companies. One, a simple one, personal care, toothbrush, let's say. Okay, so it's been around, electric toothbrushes, right? And I actually use one which has, data and AI enabled, which basically means when I brush, coverage, motion is actually getting fed at the back end. And by that, by looking at the pattern in which I use, next time I actually don't have to really push it hard or, use it, that pattern is already read, which basically means next time you just hold and you are getting yourself brushed. That's how it is, and it has been around for those who use it, great. You should try it. That is one example, and that is really customer experience. Once you've experienced that, you are never going to get back to where you were earlier. So that's one example. Another example is, let's say, MR machines, right? So there are so many incremental innovation happening due to data, software, as well as use of AI. All the machines are connected, which basically means your time to diagnose goes down drastically right now, because pathologists and doctors are a rare skill set. You don't find it. It's so difficult to find the right people, and they need help to really do that real time. And that is where all these health technology companies are, including the organization that I'm part of. We are making it much faster by, again, if you take an image, it goes back to the data center real time, tells you what the diagnosis is to the pathologists. Or again, it's augmented. It's not, at the end of the day, the decision is always taken by the pathologist or the doctor, but the help that they get is tremendous. And customer experience and patient throughput. Patient can come out much faster. So these are some of the customer experiences that we are driving in health technology. A lot of it is being done by India. A lot of it is being done by India. Of course, at the back end, you have a lot of integration, who is most important and all that. But this is how, at least, we are in exciting times. And I have nothing to complain, none of us.
I think very interesting. Saswata, thank you. So, Bert, coming to you, given your research in technology of operations in India, how do you take care of the agility and the value quotient in terms of action value you provide?
Thank you, Sathish. So, as we speak about the agility, I think some of the panelists talked about talent being an important one. And we continuously sort of believe that having talent that can really bring agility in the way you bring about changes to the organization. And so one of the things we've realized that as a consulting firm, we always talked about a T model, right? You have some integrated skill set and you have one depth. That's what you call your expertise. But I think the way the pace of change is going on and the way businesses are getting integrated, what data can do for you, what operations can do for you, what we realized is the model to go after is actually a Stonehenge model. It's not really a T model anymore. And so again, the example that Saswata you took, in our case, I'll take another very simple example, and that brings about the mindset that I'm trying to bring, is that, so again, patients, right? So patients, from a patient services perspective, so many patients may register their feedback or their questions or their 1-800 number that they would record the call. But if you don't use technology, then you're not able to then mine through the data. Because one example I'll take for one of the pharma companies, one of our analysts was able to actually design a program that would go through 100,000 of these customer feedback and was able to then help identify the patients who are at the risk of dropout, meaning they will not adhere to the treatment path that has been shared with them. And that allowed the organization to then intervene at the right time. Now the point I'm trying to make here is that this analyst, of course, was a data scientist, but had enough of an understanding of what therapy area are we talking about, what it means for a patient to continue on their therapy and what's the end impact. And so the point I'm trying to make here is that the fungibility and the integrated skill set of the talent is one of the key things, the way we look at bringing agility of innovation, agility of the value that we can bring to the table. That's one. The second, I think, again, coming back to talent from agility perspective is that we all, and again, I'm sure many of you realize, is that we all grew up with this aspect of having a very strong talent pool. Right? That's how we've all operated. But I think we as an organization are realizing that in addition to focusing on upskilling the talent, creating the Stonehenge that I talked about, it is also important to realize that pool of the talent is not probably the way to go, but to be able to learn to operate in the river of talent. The talent will come in, talent will find out more better opportunities to move on as well. And so how do you then institutionalize your knowledge, governance, I think as you talked about, in order to operate in the river of talent? So those are the two ways in which we think about bringing the tech-first mindset to create institutionalized knowledge, so that as the talent comes in and goes, you're not losing on your core expertise and are able to then continue on your business.
Thanks, Mohit. I think I'm really on quite a couple of times as well. But very interesting discussion. Thank you, and thanks for all your patience in answering the questions and going a little off script as well in some of them. And I hope the audience enjoyed every bit of it. Thank you so much. Thank you.